And looking forward to better days ahead. I know I am. So let's toast a very happy new year. This is Rosé. Cheers! Everybody's singing about whiskey. Everybody's talking about tequila. Moonshine dripping in the moonlight. Lips tasting like sangria. There's always a time.
With colorful reminders of life, City of Hope's incredible floats have been a Rose Parade fixture for 48 years. The Cancer Center's 2020 float featured the Tree of Wisdom, with soybeans, split peas, cress seed, and fine-cut straw flower covering its massive tree trunk. The float blossomed with 86,000 flowers, allowing patients, doctors, and nurses to literally stop and smell the roses. For City of Hope cancer survivors, this float is still a symbol of rebirth and new beginnings.
I remember being a child and seeing...
I have to deprive myself.
All right, folks, it's getting to about that time.
I like it.
You got plenty of noise makers going around.
I like it. So, should we, do a practice kiss?
Yeah, because we never do that.
No, never. Oh, lousy timing for this. Who's texting you near midnight on New Year's Eve?
Tanner Watts.
Those with cancer in the U.S. will not survive.
The doctor came to me.
And for my children to return back to school.
My wish for 2021 is to get married in Vegas.
My wish for 2021 would be that we can all safely spend the holidays together with our families.
Despite all the trauma of this year, I've seen how much beauty there is in human strength and in the lives of others. 2021 is full of a lot of hope, and so am I.
Things will get a little bit brighter. I hope that everyone stays happy and healthy. Stay strong and stay safe.
Never surrender, never quit. Continue to fight to keep saving as many lives and heal as many broken souls as possible.
Let's keep it up, because now more than ever, we have the power to overcome this pandemic, and together we will win this battle. Happy 2021.
I sure hope every single one of those wishes will come true this year. That does it for this hour of MSNBC. Thank you for joining us on this New Year's Day. My colleague Alicia Menendez picks up our coverage after a break. Vice President Mike Pence changing his travel plans and pushing back on a GOP effort to overturn the election. All that is coming up next right here on MSNBC.
Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, Jen.
Eating nothing but cheese till you find the perfect slice.
Fear that we are in a place right now of irreconcilable differences as
the staff for their extraordinary work. John Bonsall, Liz King, all the staff members, but all
proves that it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters what you're made of. The official beer of UFC.
Hey.
With Beach, Delaware, and she joins me live. So, MJ, what are some of the specific complaints that you're hearing from the Biden team?
Well, Allison, this is just the latest back and forth between the Trump administration and the Biden transition team. Let me just explain to you what's going on. So yesterday we saw the OMB director writing a letter to the Biden transition team saying your accusations of obstruction are completely false. I just want to read a part of that letter that he wrote to the transition team. He said, as the record shows, OMB has fully participated in appropriate transition efforts. What we have not done and will not do is use current OMB staff to write the Biden transition team's legislative policy proposals to dismantle this administration's work. Our system of government has one president and one administration at a time. OMB will not participate in developing policies that will weaken border security, dismantle the president's deregulatory successes, and draft budgets that will bankrupt America. So boiling that down, he essentially seems to be saying, look, we are being fully cooperative with the transition process, but there are certain things that we are not willing to do, things that I view as trying to dismantle or undo the work of the Trump administration. So this prompted the Biden transition team to put out a statement of their own. So let me read a little part of that from a Biden transition spokesman. He wrote, in this moment of unprecedented crisis, when millions of American families are enduring terrible economic hardship, it is indefensible to hamstring the United States government's ability to prepare a budget and efficiently deliver help to those who need it most, particularly out of explicit declared partisanship. Now, all of this comes on top of the friction between the DOD and the Biden transition team that we have been reporting on all week. Essentially, the Biden transition saying we are not getting important national security information from the Trump administration. We are not getting the meetings that we need during this transition process. Well, I will note that as of last night, the Pentagon saying that there are now some 30 interviews scheduled between the Biden agency review teams and the Trump administration's DOD officials. So we're going to have to see whether this sort of means that a corner is being turned as far as at least the DOD is concerned. But I will tell you, this really has been a messy transition process and a lot of back and forth like this coming all week, Allison.
Okay.
Download the KELO News app today.
I believe I knew your mother.
Vanna, I've already got my New Year's resolution.
What is it, Pat?
I'm going to read more.
That's great.
Yeah, I put the subtitles on my TV. Happy New Year.
Happy all year.
From Wheel of Fortune.
We'll see you at 6:30 on KSFY.
Right after Dakota News Now.
The following is a special holiday presentation of ESPN on ABC. Welcome to the Verbo Citrus Bowl, a part of Capital One Bowl Mania on a gorgeous New Year's Day in Orlando, Florida. Our matchup, the Auburn Tigers against the Wildcats, number 14 ranked team from Northwestern.
Share their thoughts about the arrival of a new year.
The pandemic has some would-be kindergartners taking a gap year. I'm Naomi Ruckham with how families are making this decision and how educators are responding to declining enrollment.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year, and thank you for having us in. 2021 is expected to bring dark days in the coronavirus pandemic. The CDC predicts over the next 3 weeks up to 80,000 more Americans will die of COVID-19, pushing the U.S. death toll as high as 424,000. Elise Preston has the latest.
There is no holiday for U.S. hospital staffs currently treating more than 125,000 Americans with the coronavirus. In hard-hit Los Angeles, COVID hospitalizations are up more than 190% in the last month.
Things are really bad. We're overwhelmed.
I've never seen a healthcare system pushed to the level that we're at.
California's governor predicts COVID hospitalizations will double in the next month, and the mayor of Los Angeles says his city's hospitals won't be able to manage it.
That will be that worst case scenario in which care is rationed, who gets the oxygen, who gets the equipment, who gets the bed.
Even as public officials plead with Californians to social distance and wear masks, hundreds showed up to this New Year's Eve concert in Valencia, led by an evangelical Christian singer. Those in attendance were protesting masks and state limits on indoor church services.
There's greater good in being here than there is being afraid of a virus.
Starting today here in New York, residents can now use sick leave benefits if they are impacted by COVID-19. In Wisconsin, police have arrested a hospital pharmacist accused of intentionally spoiling more than 500 doses of the Moderna vaccine.
The 57 recipients of those vaccines have been notified. At this time, there is no evidence that the vaccinations pose any harm to them, other than being potentially less effective or ineffective.
The hospital says the pharmacist admitted taking the vaccine vials out of the refrigerator and leaving them out overnight. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
According to the World Health Organization, there have been nearly 82 million COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began, and the total number of deaths worldwide is at 1,808,041. The Standing Rock Sioux Tribe is prioritizing the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines to those who speak Dakota and Lakota languages. Standing Rock Tribal Chairman Mike Faith says it's about keeping customs alive. Faith said only about 300 of the 8,000 people on the reservation are fluent in the language. Tribal Health Director Margaret Gates said the Lakota and Dakota speakers, quote, are the most important asset to our tribe and people because of the language. The South Dakota Department of Health will not report new COVID-19 numbers this afternoon due to the New Year's holiday. The most recent update shows 24 more South Dakotans with COVID-19 have died. Since the pandemic started, 1,488 people have died in South Dakota. Health officials also confirmed more than 400 new cases. The number of active cases went down to about 5,600. There are currently 297 coronavirus patients in South Dakota hospitals. More than 21,000 people have received a dose of either the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine. The Health Department's next update will be tomorrow and will include information from December 30th through the 31st. Well, turning now to our first look at your midday forecast with meteorologist Scott Munt. A very pleasant start to 2021 in South Dakota, right?
Yeah, that it is. Rather quiet. Now, we do have thick fog in the northeastern South Dakota, so much so that there is a dense fog advisory in the northeast.
Each nation is doing. We are doing 0.3% of gene sequencing of all the Americans who become infected. So this is the tip of the iceberg. I am quite sure that there is much more spread of this variant than we are actually picking up just because we're not looking for it.
And your job at the CDC previously was to work around the world and track diseases and research these outbreaks. You know, you don't sound surprised that this COVID strain is making its way into different countries, but is it even possible for these vaccines that are coming out to be prepared to handle these variants?
Well, the good news is that even though we are having more evidence becoming available that the new variant is a lot more contagious, the good news part of this is that it doesn't seem to cause any more severe illness, doesn't seem to cause an uptick in hospitalizations itself, doesn't seem to cause an increase in deaths from COVID-19. And at least what the mRNA vaccine makers are telling us at Pfizer-BioNTech and at Moderna is that their vaccines do still seem to work against the newer variant. My concern is that anytime you let a virus spread this wildly out of control with so many transmissions from one person to another over such a long period of time, you just increase your likelihood for more genetic mutations within the virus, for newer variants to come along. And what if, heavens forbid, we end up in a situation where there is a variant which the newer vaccines do not work against? That's why we have to do everything possible right now to slow down and eventually stop the spread of this virus.
Yeah, and
we do. Okay, it hasn't been quite that long, but we do share a lot of special memories that we have made right here in Pasadena. Here's a look at some of the fun we've had over the years.
Bam! That's how you start off 2020. 2020. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Al Roker, and I am so thrilled to start the new year off with Hoda Kotb.
There's no better place to spend the Rose Parade than next to Al Roker.
This is such a memorable experience hosting with you in the beautiful city of Pasadena, California. They're excited for us fans.
I need a microphone. We have a lot of fun coming up.
Check this out. Yeah. The splendor, the aroma. Can you smell it?
Oh, it's fantastic. This is my 25th year doing this parade. Many people are surprised I got past two. Feels like I've been here for 90 years.
This is your 21st Rose Parade, so congratulations, you're legal. You can drink now.
That's right. In fact, we already got started. Well, I know you love rosé,
yes.
So instead we have roses. Hey. All right. Somebody just tweeted wanting to know if we've been drinking before the parade.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first float is making its way down the street. We'll duck and get out of your way so you can see. And it is called So Close Yet Safari Away.
I get it. Safari Away. Look at what these kids do. Man, are you serious?
Oh, I can kind of picture you taming a Mustang.
I can barely drive a Mustang, let alone tame one. What are you, crazy? Can you imagine doing that Larian for 5.5 miles?
You're doing it.
I would be at the end of my rope. Keep it here for more flow and better jokes than that one.
We're loving all your tweets, so please keep them coming.
This just in.
What is it? Breaking news.
Somebody just tweeted, "Are we married?" No, we're not.
And we're also going to tell you there are some surprises to come.
And hold on a sec. Just wait. You're going to have to wait for this. We got something big coming.
I can't wait.
It's about to happen.
What's going to happen?
Yeah, just wait.
It's worth it.
This was worth the trip to Pasadena. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, well, you're going to have to wait for it a little later.
It was going to be good.
Okay, that makes me want to get back there.
Well, but we do have an announcement.
What?
We are married.
So weird. Coming up, it may be winter, but let's soak up the sun. Multi-platinum selling artist Sheryl Crow performs her Grammy-nominated hit. So keep it right here.
Why don't you admit it?
Happy New Year, I'm Daddy Yankee, and I'm excited to join you here for the Rose Parade's New Year's celebration. We're looking forward to seeing your floats again next year. In the meantime, please help our neighbors in need. Visit www.feedamerican.org and donate what you can. Remember that with $1, we have to provide 10 million for our neighbors in need. Thank you.
This is my body.
Yeah, I think we might call his name and keep.
So I'd like to start the conversation with Brett by asking
the Georgia people right now, but that's not going to work. And so what we've done in the last 6 weeks is made sure people knew what was at stake. We have to protect what we've done in the last 4 years and make sure the Democrats don't come and put us back into the dark days that we saw during the Obama and Biden administration when they gave us 8 years of the lowest economic output in U.S. history and really destroyed a lot of the foreign policy things that have been built up over 30 years abroad. So I'm confident we're going to get our vote out and do just fine on Monday or Tuesday.
Good for you, and we'll look forward to watching. I want to turn to Jon Ossoff and your Democratic opponent's comments when he pushed back yesterday, as you probably saw in an interview with Peter Doocy here on Fox. He called your attacks on his ties to China and a Hong Kong company's payment utter nonsense. I'm going to have you watch this clip and then have you react.
Are you concerned that through a payment to a well-known young Democrat, somebody linked to China or the Chinese through another company could be trying to influence you?
Come on, man, you're a serious reporter.
That's right. That's why he's asking the question. Your response.
Exactly. Well, he is a serious reporter. That's why this question needs to be asked, but it's not asked by any of the liberal media that's out there. It's amazing to me that you can have the Eric Swalwell crisis, the Hunter Biden crisis, and ignore the Jon Ossoff crisis. This is clearly a pattern of activity from the Chinese Communist Party. They identified Jon Ossoff after his 2017 attempt to run for the U.S. House and lost. They identified him as an ambitious young politician on the Democratic side that they probably could get influence with, so they hired him. And he worked for 2 years for this propaganda company of the Chinese Communist Party, Julie, and he hid it from the people of Georgia during his primary. He might not have won that primary had he fully closed that. He got caught, he then disclosed it, lied about it, and lied about it again. And he still didn't answer Peter's question. If you notice that, he never has answered that question. I asked him that in a debate. He didn't answer it. Peter asked him that yesterday. He did not answer it. He has not answered it yet.
All right. Senator David Perdue, good luck to you and your wife, and I wish you all the health in 2021, and good luck on Tuesday. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Anita.
On U.S. soil. The top military advisor to the supreme leader issued a stark warning that all U.S. military bases in the region are covered by Iran's missiles, while Iran's foreign minister says he has intelligence that a plot is being fabricated as a pretext for war, adding that Iran will defend itself and its vital interests. But I've got to tell you, Iran is also fully aware that launching an attack on U.S. assets directly or via proxy could be very costly for them in the final weeks of Trump's presidency. And Tehran may decide that it's prudent to keep their powder dry now, especially given that they desperately want the Biden administration to rejoin the Iran nuclear deal. But as you well know, things in this region, especially vis-a-vis America, are predictably unpredictable.
Monica, the U.S. flew B-52 bombers over Iran earlier this week, part of a show of force to deter further action. Does the administration, from what you're hearing, feel that this strategy is working, or has it failed to de-escalate these tensions?
And that's a move we've seen, Alicia, happen a couple of times in the last 45-day period, indicating just how closely they're monitoring the situation, of course, aware of any potential threats to U.S. military assets in the region. But we do have to rewind to almost exactly a year ago when the president was the one who ordered that drone strike that ultimately killed General Soleimani when he was in Iraq. And the president at the time, expecting potential retaliation from Iran, said that if that happened, Iran would regret it forever, and had extremely, language that was quite inflammatory. So we haven't heard anything like that from the president in recent days, but there are questions about why he returned to Washington early. We've asked the White House to explain that, and they haven't provided that. So it could be one of a range of issues he's monitoring in these final weeks, Alicia.
Mike, is last-minute action against Iran one of the reasons the Biden administration is so concerned about the lack of communication they've been getting from the Pentagon in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, Alicia. When Biden spoke about this in public earlier this week, he was focused on the SolarWinds hack, the attack on our cyber infrastructure that's being attributed to Russia. But clearly, this is something that they're also very concerned about. Part of this is what Biden said throughout the campaign was his concern that as the walls closed in on President Trump, as he put it, that he would behave more erratically and potentially take these kinds of actions. Another part of this is just simply the level of experience on the part of the Biden team. Many of these officials, it would have been the case likely for any Democratic candidate who won the presidency to bring back some former Obama administration officials, especially so in the Biden case. These are officials who helped prepare a transition 4 years ago for the incoming Trump team. They know what they don't know, and so they know the kind of cooperation they should be getting from the Trump team that they're not getting at this point, and the lack of information on key areas, especially with relation to the Middle East and Iran, something that they work very intensely on, of course, with the Iran nuclear deal, that they should be getting. And so a big part of what we're hearing from the Biden team on this now.
All right.
Don't put it past me.
Happy New Year, Perry.
Yeah, you too.
Happy New Year, everybody. Temperatures will remain above average probably for the next several days. We're looking at these numbers in the 20s and 30s. As we get into next week, we'll stay above freezing for a while. You know, that next chance we have at either light rain or light snow may appear around midweek, Wednesday of next week. Moisture still looking limited. It's only in there at about 20 to maybe a 30% chance. Now, as you check our 10-day temperature trend here, you see once we get into the 30s in Sioux Falls, we'll probably stay there for a while. We have 30 going tomorrow and then 34 on Sunday. And then we'll stay in the mid-30s through at least Tuesday. And you can see here on our temperature trend map, the above average temperatures to our north in the southern Canada. That's rather interesting because usually when we have a deep snowpack there, that really affects our temperatures when we get the cold outbreaks. So we'll see what happens as we go through the rest of the month. But I'd say easily for the first half of the month, numbers will probably remain above average for the most part. And I do want to change the view here because I'm a big believer in what happens in Alaska has a connection to what's going on here. See how we have much of Alaska being a little colder than average while we stay a little bit above? Once we start to see that change, then we can see maybe some colder air starting to pour in. In the meantime, well, let's go ahead and enjoy the above average temperatures. Added to the snow cover, you can see in central South Dakota now, and this is just, a computer estimate as to what you may have. Some areas have more than this, and some areas do have less than this. But coming in around 3 in Pierre, you see the amounts in eastern Kettle 3 to maybe 6 inches. And then we do have that amount close to 7 or 8 just to the northwest of Yankton, where in southeastern Kettle we do have a couple of isolated areas here that are reporting amounts a little more than 6 inches. You see maybe probably near Freeman, we could have an area there a little bit more than 6. Well, the chances to add to this looking slight for this weekend. In fact, we are going with dry skies. Then next week, maybe around midweek, we'll bring that chance in for snow, especially across northeastern South Dakota. Thick fog
Yeah, he's not happy with this response that we saw from those Justice Department attorneys who were representing the vice president here, asking this federal judge to reject this lawsuit, basically saying that Louis Gohmert and company are suing the wrong defendant here. And you're right, we do have a response from Louis Gohmert, who we should remind viewers is a close ally of the president. And so this is a notable, notably pitting the vice president against one of the president's top allies in the House. And Gohmert said in response, quote, "They say that the vice president, the glorified envelope opener in chief, has no authority to preside over anything else or to decide anything of substance or even to count the votes in those weighty envelopes. He is only the envelope opener." And so basically what he was arguing in this lawsuit was that the vice president did have the authority to change the outcome of the election. And so if this federal judge does rule that, of course, as we've noted, Pence's role is just procedural, it could help take some of the heat off of him, given that we know the president himself has taken a heightened interest in what Vice President Mike Pence is going to do next week when Congress does meet. And, as Phil was talking about, we know what the House is going to do. We now know what some Republican senators are going to do, but we still don't know what the vice president himself is going to do, because of course he just is this procedural role, but the president is looking for him to do a lot more politically, and he is also balancing his own political ambitions with this and his loyalty to the president, of course.
And Caitlin, I know you will be following this, and we will be following you. Caitlin Collins, thanks very much. Joining me now to talk more about the Republican-led effort to object to Joe Biden's Electoral College victory next week is Bill Kristol, editor-at-large of The Bulwark. Great to see you, Bill.
Good to see you. Happy New Year, Allison.
Happy New Year. So you come with a lot of experience here. You worked in Republican administrations. What are you thinking here? Do you expect Vice President Mike Pence to follow precedent here and certify the votes next week?
I think he ultimately will. How much, rope he gives his fellow Republicans to object, and how seriously, whether he bends over backwards to let them make a spectacle of it, or whether he tries, in a sense, to curb their efforts, is hard to say. But if you step back, we shouldn't just lose sight of the forest for the trees here, and we need to follow every zig and zag of this and the ridiculous lawsuits and by Louis Gohmert and so forth. But it is unbelievable, and I say this as someone who served in Republican administrations and was a loyal Republican for 2-3 decades, maybe more, that they are going this far in trying to undercut, to overturn a Democratic election, one of our two major political parties, an election that's not as close as the 2000 election, not as close as the 2004 election, really, not as close as 1960. And no one did this. No president has ever tried to gin up crowds to come to Washington to challenge, the reporting of electoral college votes, which have been fairly and freely counted, freely cast and fairly counted, huge turnout. And no president's done this. Never have major figures in a political party tried to do this. So it's really astounding. And one knows, of course, that democracy is fragile and it's an experiment. And we had a civil war and we've had many failings. But I really got to say, I just never quite expected to see this in my own sort of personal political lifetime.
Well, you're watching it now, and as we're watching it, we're seeing yet another twist and turn here. President Trump is praising Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri after announcing he'll object to certify Biden's Electoral College victory next week. In a tweet here, Trump writes, "America is proud of Josh and the many others who are joining him." CNN is reporting that at least 140 Republican House members could join in next Wednesday in doing so. So what does this tell you about the Republican Party right now?
I don't think, I'm not so sure they'll get to 140 from the people I've talked to, but they're going to get a lot of Republican House members, some Republican senators, led by Josh Hawley, and now, as you report, praised by the president. I mean, if this were happening abroad in some country in Central or Eastern Europe or Latin America, we'd say, boy, that democracy is kind of shaky. I mean, the whole point of a democracy is the peaceful transfer of power. The party that power loses, they accept the results, and that seems not quite to be happening here. So I think it will happen. But the shakiness is worrisome, and the irresponsibility, the demagoguery, the reckless kind of throwing matches into, spilling gasoline around as much as you can and then tossing some matches around is really shocking. So we'll see how the Republicans sort out. We'll see if anyone pays a price for either, right? And if you support this, does leadership tell you, well, you can't, if you support this, you can't be in leadership. You can't be a committee chair or a ranking member. Or it's the opposite. To the ones who resist this, I think correctly and courageously, end up paying a political price in the Republican Party. That's a huge question going ahead.
Yeah, and
Okay, he's my son. This is my dad, Mike. I love him. That's why I want to be a member, so we can spend more time to
for it better than maybe a lot of.
Portland, Oregon, where a crowd attacked officers with rocks and Molotov cocktails, prompting police to declare a riot. Senior correspondent Claudia Cowan has the story from our West Coast newsroom. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, Anita. Well, Portland residents hoping to start the new year off on a peaceful note woke up disappointed. Protesters vandalized storefronts and shot off fireworks. Some also set fires. One garbage can melted down to the pavement. Video shows police in riot gear facing off against a crowd that grew to almost 100 people. When the protests turned violent, police ordered everyone to leave the area or face arrest and possible use of force. But few heeded the warning, and early this morning, police tweeted, quote, "A gathering in downtown Portland has devolved into a riot. Participants have thrown multiple firebombs at officers and launched commercial-grade fireworks at the federal courthouse and Justice Center." Police say rioters tossed at least 2 Molotov cocktail-style firebombs and launched large commercial-grade aerial fireworks at the federal courthouse and Justice Center, government buildings that have been flashpoints for protests that became widespread in Portland following the death of George Floyd in May. Protesters attacked police with rocks, bricks, frozen water bottles, and even paint balloons that police say may have contained some kind of acid that burned their skin.
Can more easily infect the human body than the strain we've been dealing with since March, if not earlier. So what does that mean? It just means more cases. And it means that there needs to be a greater urgency to vaccinate more at-risk individuals, not just frontline workers, but those who have pre-existing conditions, lowering that age limit and making sure we have an infrastructure and a plan in place to do that, because it just means we're going to get more people who will be infected with COVID-19, one strain or the other, and that invariably will mean more hospitalizations and more deaths. So this is going to lead to more healthcare system burden. And we've already been expecting that, Alicia. We have modeling that suggests that the worst of this pandemic, unfortunately, is ahead of us in these next 2 to 3 weeks. This new strain is just going to complicate that.
Dr. Gupta, you have Colorado, California, Florida all saying they have already found the strain in their states. Should states that haven't yet found this new strain act as if it were already there? And how does that then change the approach of public health officials?
I think they should, because your regular test for COVID-19, Alicia, is not going to tell you whether this is the UK strain or not. It's just going to say you're positive or negative. You need something called genomic sequencing, which some really advanced lab facilities have, but we just don't have a national strategy to really be looking for this or other strains at scale. Public health officials across the country should absolutely presume that this strain is already circulating in their respective environments. And the response should be more of the same, but much more, it begs the question, especially in places like California, you're seeing now stay-at-home orders in place. I mean, much more than just closing down indoor dining and indoor bars. They're actually asking people to stay home. Obviously, there's only so much we can do in terms of compelling people not to travel and engage in non-essential activities, but you might be seeing more stay-at-home orders in places where hospitalizations are peaking to the point that we don't have another option here, that there is no more room, as you said in that first reporter segment here. In places where there is no surge capacity, that's what public health officials would have to start to look at. If we have this new strain, we have hospitalizations peaking, there's no surge capacity, what else can we do other than potentially have a temporary stay-at-home order in place, back to what we were doing in the spring?
Dr. Gupta, can you explain to us whether or not this vaccine would work on a different strain?
All the evidence we have right now, let me be clear to all your viewers, Alicia, that there's still, science is continually evolving, especially on the vaccine. What we do know is that this new strain is not different enough at the genetic level, at the genetic footprint level, to evade the vaccine and the immune response that a human will get once they get the vaccine. So we are very confident that in this coming year, as people get this vaccine, it will protect them from the new strain in addition to the old strain. What does that mean, Alicia, though, with a future forward process in mind here? What do we think about the future? Probably, this means that there's going to be a vaccine down the road, maybe in 2022 or 2023, that's going to be updated like we update the flu vaccine to account for these new strains, for these new mutations, to make sure that this pandemic doesn't suddenly creep its head again in a few years, even if we've gotten through the worst of it by, say, the summer. So there might be a future COVID-19 vaccine that's updated to make sure that we have full protection against any new strains.
Some of the snow and ice, and I just have that 20, maybe 30% chance to add a little bit to that midweek of next week. But all in all, these temperatures will remain above average.
And that is our time for this midday. Happy New Year.